Regarding an attack plot.
An alleged plan to attack, an FBI tip-off, and weeks of police surveillance all culminate in the arrest of 2 people in Kingston. One was just released about an hour ago. The other, a youth, is now charged with a terror-related offense. The RCMP filled in some of the blanks for us today, detailing some of what they found in the 2 houses they zeroed in on yesterday and just how big this investigation was. Here's David Cochran.
This street, this house, the focus of a national counterterrorism operation.
We did receive credible FBI information regarding an attack plot with no specific time, date, or location affixed to it.
That tip launched a multi-agency investigation involving 300 people. The immediate result, an unnamed minor arrested and charged with plotting to build a bomb and detonate it in a public place.
The individual was reported to be involved in the manufacturing of homemade improvised explosive devices, and that was one of the subjects of our investigation.
Police raided the home of the minor on Thursday afternoon.
I mean, it's always surprising to come home from school and then seeing a whole bunch of cars and vans and police everywhere.
At the same time, they raided this house a few kilometers away, the home of a Syrian refugee family. They arrested but have not charged 20-year-old Hussam Adin al-Zahabi. His family would not talk on camera today, but Amin al-Zahabi told CBC by phone his oldest son was arrested.
I know my son, he cannot think about that. He like Canada. He like the safety in Canada. How could he think about that?
In this case, father may have known best, as Hussam was released this afternoon without charge.
At no time was the city of Kingston or any Canadian area under direct threat.
The police focused heavily on reassuring people they were safe, despite simultaneous counter-terrorism raids in residential neighborhoods. The specifics of how this alleged plot was working and what the motive might be were left for another day, as the police say they won't discuss the specifics of the investigation. David Cochran, CBC News, Kingston.
Still ahead, one of Donald Trump's closest and oldest friends is arrested by the FBI in pre-dawn raids, and the lengthy government shutdown comes to a temporary end without funding for Trump's wall. We'll have those stories coming up. A room at Toronto Police Headquarters was packed with dozens of kilograms of drugs today, all of them seized as part of Project Sparta. Also seized 3 men now facing charges who police allege are connected to a sophisticated gang. Chris Glover is live at Adelaide and Simcoe for us today. And Chris, that area, one of the 3 where police made these drug busts.
All 3 homes that were raided are relatively close to the downtown, and police say that they have now charged 3 high-ranking gang members with trafficking-related offenses. But a criminologist says that this will likely not stop the gang from operating.
Tucked in vehicles, hidden in coffee tables, police seized an epic amount of drugs.
The work that they do on a day-to-day basis is astronomical.
We're talking high-level importers, high-level traffickers.
68 kilos of cocaine, 5 garbage bags of cannabis, 1 kilo of crystal meth. Totaled up, it equals $7.6 million on the street.
When you're at this level, when you're trusted with 10, 20, 40, 70 kilos, that puts you at a certain level in an organization.
The feds hoped legalizing cannabis would stop the illicit market, but in this bust alone, 5 bags full.
Why are you not surprised?
Unless you're able to provide it to me for X amount of dollars a gram, then you're going to have a black market, and that's the bottom line.
To immediately assume that the creation of this legal market was going to diminish this illicit market is naive.
This University of Toronto gang expert says today's bust is important but won't stop the problem.
We're often playing a game of whack-a-mole, but we're never really addressing the root causes or underlying conditions that are propelling young, at-risk men in particular into street gangs.
Police searched 3 homes and 3 vehicles connected to 3 accused men, all in the downtown.
There's often this presumption that gang violence, drug-related crimes are all happening in marginalized neighborhoods, but that's often not the reality. The reality is that this stuff is pervasive.
As for the name of the investigation, Project Sparta,
this is Sparta!
Officers think one of the accused looks like Gerard Butler's character in the 2006 film 300.
Something that's non-offensive, and in fact, it was quite complimentary in my opinion.
So the three accused have now appeared in court, and one of them has been, remains behind bars. Two of them, though, have been released on bail. Dwight?
Thank you, Chris. A woman walking her dogs in Pickering made a gruesome discovery this morning. A man's body. Durham police are now investigating, calling his death suspicious. It was found in a forest just north of Pine Ridge Secondary School. The victim is believed to be in his 20s. Durham's homicide unit has taken over the case. And Toronto police have identified the woman who was stabbed to death near Jane and St. Clair yesterday morning. 41-year-old Hannah Nguyen is Toronto's 5th murder victim of the year. Another man was found at the home with stab wounds and rushed to hospital. He's been ID'd as 40-year-old Austin Lee. He has been charged with second-degree murder.
I'm Lorenda Redicop. We're driving along the Gardiner Expressway right now, and this is one of the roads that actually has sensors right inside the roadway. You can't see them, but they're there, and they're there for city crews to be able to monitor and also try to keep the roads safe. I'll have more on that technology and also others that the city is using. That story coming up.
After 3 nights in the dark and cold, residents at 260 Wellesley are slowly getting their power back. Taylor Simmons joins us live from outside the building now. And Taylor, power is back for some, but it will be still a while until full power is restored.
Yeah, so 48 hours we're hearing until full power could be restored, but heat, elevators, those are back up and running. And just in the last hour, we've seen lights start to come on, so that's a huge relief to some residents. But the catch, Dwight, some residents are still waiting, and they could be waiting for a while. If you look up the building, power is being turned on slowly, methodically, suite by suite. And here's Deputy Chief Jim Jessup explaining why they have to do it that way.
If stoves have been left on, if there are materials on stoves, if curling irons have been left on, if irons have been left on, the last thing that we want right now are multiple fires breaking out in this apartment building. As important, we want to make sure that taps have not been left on, that there have not been unintended freezing of toilet bowls or other pipes. And so when the water is restored in several hours, the last thing that we want to have happen is unintended flooding, which may take us back to the very problem that has caused us the issues over the last 72 hours.
So residents, there's fire is staying on scene in case any problems arise in the next, anything that they were just saying there. But residents obviously relieved that even if it's not for a while, they're going to get power back on soon. And we spoke to some of them today, and they say it didn't get that cold. They say fire was saying that it was 18 degrees in the building, didn't get any lower than that throughout this whole experience. But obviously, there's huge relief for water, electricity coming back on.
The whole thing was just a nightmare, but it's okay. That's wonderful. Good news. I'm very happy now.
I was scared. With child and all, it's difficult to manage too. We changed 2 places in these 4 days. Hopefully, this should not happen again.
I was in 650 Parliament, and I just moved here last month. So it is a couple of times I have to move around. So I am looking for the hot shower. I don't want to go to anywhere else, to any friend's home or anything like that. You are just used to with your own washrooms and everything.
Yeah, needs a hot shower, he says. Now, Taylor, can any clarification yet on why that pipe burst on Tuesday?
Yeah, the thing that started this whole mess. And just a reminder, this whole power outage was a precaution because when that pipe burst, water seeped into the electrical room. They were letting it dry to see if any more damage had been done, and now slowly bringing it all back on. But it could be age, could be maintenance, could be the cold that we've been seeing. But Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam said today that because of this, and because there's 3,400 buildings in the city that are about this age, this one was built in the 1960s, that she wants the city to keep better track of how maintenance is going and how property managers are keeping up with the property. So here's what she said.
Moving forward, we have to do a better job, and that includes ensuring that property owners are going to be held to account to make sure that they are doing their job to keep these buildings in a state of good repair, and also to make sure that they have better communication protocol with the tenants.
So those meetings are expected to start early next week, and the property owners of this building, Wellesley Parliament Square, they say they're open to being a part of that conversation. Now, meantime, Fire has a big ask for residents of this building, saying when you do get power, don't use it all at once. Maybe don't go for that hot shower right away. A big ask after 3 days of not having that, but they're saying maybe stay with a friend tonight while things are still getting up and going so everything's not overwhelmed. Or the Wellesley Community Center is going to be open until Monday in case anyone wants to go there for some hot water, Dwight.
Good to hear that they're slowly but surely getting that power back. Thank you, Taylor. Yet another water main break causing flooding in the city, this one near Wellington and Spadina. Area residents and businesses were notified that their water would be temporarily shut off. City crews arrived on site to make repairs. Toronto experiences an average of 1,400 water main breaks annually, which usually happen during the winter because of our freeze and thaw cycle. And to tell us all about the freeze-thaw cycle, here's Colette, because it's really been a roller coaster this year, Colette. It's been up, freezing, and then down. Like, it's hard to keep track.
It is hard to keep track, and we're mostly headed down at this point, I have to tell you that. And by the way, those images, that's how I started my day, actually, with that water main break, trying to walk my dog and get through all that water flooding the street in my neighborhood. And then a little further along, a woman had slipped on the ice. So all these different kinds of conditions, she was okay, an ambulance came, but she was going to be okay. But, you know, it can happen at any time to anyone. We have to be so careful when we have the wet roads or we get the water main breaks and then a flash freeze or freezing temperatures like we have right now, -10 in Toronto. The winds sustain now. They've shifted a little bit here, coming in almost 30 kilometers an hour. It feels like -19. That's our wind chill. You can see what that's done with some of those streamers, too. Did you experience that at any point today where, first of all, you're in sunshine and then you go into near whiteout conditions because some of those squalls making their way all the way down towards the GTA? More significant stuff, though, that's up towards Georgian Bay and the shores here of Lake Huron. So that's where the snow squall warning's in place, 15 to 25 centimeters, although these are moving around a bit with the winds. There's also a snow squall watch and then a weather advisory, and that includes around towards Niagara because of some of the conditions we're seeing with some of the blowing snow. Overnight tonight, -13, feels -21. Sunshine tomorrow through most of the day anyway, and -9. Then Saturday night we get into some flurries. I'll have the full weekend forecast coming up, Dwight.
See you in a bit. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Snow, freezing rain, wet roads that suddenly ice over when the temperatures dip. We've had it all these last few days, and the city's trying to something new to try to keep up with it. Lorinda Redekop explains they are using technology to try to stay ahead of our changing weather.
Driving along a highway in the city, you could be passing right on top of a road sensor that's calculating the conditions.
If you look at the size of a hockey puck, and that's about the size of it, that's embedded under the top layer of asphalt.
These sensors also connect to towers and become like a mini weather station that also monitor wind.
We knew that it was going to turn from rain to maybe some freezing rain. The pavement temperatures are going to drop, so that may trigger a response.
The Gardiner Expressway, where we are driving right now, it's just one of the major highways in the city that has those sensors embedded right into the road. All the major highways have them. That includes the 401 and also the Don Valley Parkway. It sure beats how they tested the roads years ago.
Back in the old days, you know, we would have been driving up and down the roads and, you know, jamming the brakes on, hoping we didn't slide too far. And with this technology, we already know that exists, so we can make a better informed decision.
They don't even need salting trucks anymore, going down the new ramp off the Gardiner to the York Bay Yonge exit.
Through the gauges in the roadway, it will tell us if that road is going to ice over, and we have an anti-icing agent that will spray right onto that ramp without a patroller having to do anything.
Other technology monitors the level of the Don River for possible flooding, which happened early yesterday morning, and alerted crews immediately.
Green's good, red not so good. So we're in the green, so we're happy about that.
And if you're wondering where the city plows are and when they might be coming to your street, you can log in to see them in real time and the last time they cleared streets in your area. Just go to the city's website at toronto.ca, then search Plow TO Map. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
After 35 days under a partially shut down government, the longest in U.S. history, there appears to be a compromise. Congressional leaders and U.S. President Donald Trump have reached a short-term deal to reopen the government.
We have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government. As everyone knows, I have a very powerful alternative, but I didn't want to use it at this time.
Trump made the announcement from the White House that alternative would be to declare a national emergency to build his long-promised wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. That will be subject to ongoing negotiations. Talks will continue under this new deal, which will reopen the government for 3 weeks. Travelers in and out of Pearson were affected by the shutdown today after LaGuardia Airport halted all of its flights because of what's going on in Washington, D.C.
We sat on the runway for a while. The plane sat on the runway to get there. They said it was because of the lack of staff.
They mentioned that it's ground traffic in LaGuardia, and that's what causes the delays.
They told us our plane was on the tarmac for an hour, so that was our delay.
They mentioned congestion.
On the tarmac.
We got out and we were lucky, but after that, I think they just shut it down.
I did overhear someone complaining when I was going down the escalator, talking about how they were working for no money. I think everyone in the airport was fed up that there are delays because of what's going on.
The Federal Aviation Administration temporarily stopped flights from coming in and going out of the New York airport because of a shortage of air traffic control staff. It caused many delays and even some canceled flights. LaGuardia is one of the country's busiest airports. And while the ground stop only lasted for an hour and 22 minutes, other major airports were also affected, including Newark and Philadelphia. A former Donald Trump campaign advisor has been arrested and charged in Florida. Roger Stone was picked up by the FBI at his home this morning, and he is defiant about the charges against him.
This is a politically motivated investigation. I am troubled by the political motivations of the prosecutors. And as I have said previously, there is no circumstance whatsoever under which I will bear false witness against the president.
It's all part of Robert Mueller's investigation into Trump and ties to Russia. Stone is charged with witness tampering, obstruction, and lying to Congress. He is the 6th Trump associate to be charged in the special counsel Russia investigation. He's now out on a $250,000 bond. The 66-year-old says he will plead not guilty.
It's All-Star Weekend in the NHL, meaning it's time for the Leafs to get their midterm report cards. I'm Greg Ross at the Hockey Hall of Fame, talking to fans about how they feel the Leafs have done in the first half of the season. We'll have the results coming up.
It is All-Star Weekend in the NHL, which makes it the perfect time to give our Leafs their midterm grades. We started the season with high hopes, but there have been some ups and downs. After a lengthy contract dispute, William Nylander has struggled. The Leafs also limped into the break with just 4 wins in their last 10 games. Greg Ross spoke to Leaf fans about how they are feeling.
Who's been the biggest surprise on the Leafs this year?
I'm not really surprised. Everyone's just playing how I expected, really.
Well, I don't know if it's a surprise, but I think Mitch Marner's having a great season.
Here's Marner, splits the D, waits, takes, scores!
He's been outshining Austin Matthews.
The play of John Tavares on both ends of the rink.
Walks in, feeds it back across, they score! John Tavares!
I knew he was a good player coming in. He didn't realize how good a player he is.
Who's been the biggest disappointment in the first half of the season?
You got to go with Nylander, only because of the money they gave him this year.
He's just got to get back into it because he came in late.
I would say the play of Nikita Zaitsev has been declining. He's going through a period where he can't get the puck out of his own end.
And what do you think has been the Leafs' biggest strength in the first half of the season?
Definitely their scoring and their power play.
Here's Matthews, moves in, waits, shoots, scores!
The depth. They have depth that no other team can match in National Hockey League.
Their scoring's been pretty decent. They've gotten good secondary scoring.
What area of their game do they need to improve on the most in the second half of the season?
I'd have to say the defense has to be shored up a little bit.
Now Soderberg pokes it away and moves in on Gardiner. Soderberg works it loose, comes in and scores!
What's happening in the defensive zone is the Leafs are having trouble moving the puck out. Their outlet pass is good, but it's just when they get boxed in, they have a tendency to panic, and teams are jumping on that.
They need more like stay-at-home defenseman types is what I would say.
If you had to give them a grade, what would it be for the first half of the season?
B+. They've played terrific.
All right, I'll go with an A- then, yeah.
Why?
Just where they are in the standings.
I'd give them an A, maybe A-.
I know I mistakenly said Nylander. It's Nylander, and he still needs to score more goals. York Regional Police are warning people to be on the lookout for distraction-style thefts, particularly in parking lots, and they've released a video of one incident as an example. In it, a team of thieves targets someone who's just been to a bank, puncturing the victim's tire after he's left his vehicle. When he returns, another member of the group alerts him to the flat, and when he goes to investigate it, another thief grabs the victim's bag and takes off. Police say the whole thing played out over 25 minutes and that it can take a while before a victim even realizes what's happened. Stay with us. We will be right back. Some Ryerson students are demanding answers after snapshots of credit card bills linked to their student union were publicized this week. The bills show thousands of dollars of purchases, including some at local hotels, bars, and liquor stores. Farah Morelli is live tonight at the university. So, Farah, how did this first come to light?
Well, Dwight, it was the student newspaper, the Eye Opener, that first brought this to light. They published photos of these credit card statements that they were able to confirm were linked to the Ryerson Students' Union, even naming the Ryerson Student Union president. And while we don't have context for these charges, there are many students who essentially pay the fees towards this union every semester that are demanding answers.
There was $347.34 that went towards Hayes Lounge in Mississauga, so we think that's a shisha bar, shisha lounge.
At first blush, they could be credit card charges for your average Torontonian.
This one here also was over $2,000 to EFS Toronto, which is a club in Toronto.
But they're not. They're charges to a credit card issued to the Ryerson Students' Union, first brought to light by these three reporters with the student newspaper, The Eye Opener.
It started a couple of months ago. We were working on another story, and somebody had anonymously told us, sort of off the record, that you should be looking into the credit card statements because the RSU has credit cards.
The statements show a range of transactions. One shows a charge of more than $3,000 to a credit management company in Stratford. Another shows two different hotel transactions, $82.50 at Hotel X and nearly $400 at the Marriott. There's also purchases at the LCBO, one that's more than $780. The statements are addressed to RSU President Ram Ganesh, but it's unclear whether he personally made those charges. What we don't have here is context for the charges you're seeing on those credit card statements. There may very well be reasonable explanations for them. We popped by the RSU office today to try to get some answers, but we're told no one was there to speak to us.
A lot of things didn't really add up. A lot of our financial policies and bylaws weren't being followed.
This RSU board member says he noticed something was off when the president took office in May and fired the GM, usually tasked with overseeing the union.
Fast forward a little bit, I asked the president if I could meet with the accountant to sort of look things over, just see what's going on, and that request was rejected. In fact, he told the financial controller that under no circumstances was I allowed to speak with her.
One former RSU president today echoed the view that the charges are unusual.
My flags are up, and if I was a student at Ryerson, I'd have a lot of questions, and I'd be storming the gates right now to try to get the answers.
The Eye Opener says they, too, are still waiting for answers.
What kind of change we can expect or what's going to happen next is really hard to tell at this point.
One thing's for certain, their piece is getting a lot of attention.
Students are now saying we have a right to know what our money's going towards, and I think that students will start to drive a lot of that online and offline conversation in the coming days and weeks.
No, don't do that.
So, Dwight, we're told that the RSU has until February 1st to reconcile its expenses, so we might learn some more details after that as to what these charges are. But one thing to keep in mind is the timing of all of this. We know that the Ontario government is looking to allow students to be able to opt out of ancillary fees that would go to groups like the RSU, but those fees also go to other organizations, to health centers on campus, to the student newspaper, among other organizations. So a lot of students I spoke to said the timing of all of this news about the charges on the credit card of the RSU is just really bad timing.
And certainly not a good look, and answers are needed. Thank you, Farah. Education's under attack! What do we do? A group of students met this afternoon to march on Queen's Park, speaking out against the provincial government's recent changes to the Ontario Student Assistance Program, or OSAP. The PCs are scrapping free tuition for low-income students and lowering the amount of money a family can make before their student no longer qualifies. Organizers say this rally is part of a bigger push for change.
We've already had a rally in Ottawa, in Windsor, in Cambridge. Ottawa's already has another rally planned for next week. I'm from Hamilton, and we have a rally planned for next week. The energy is amazing. It's only going to continue to grow stronger and stronger until the Ford government reverses their cuts and their attacks on post-secondary education.
In announcing the changes earlier this month, the PCs also lowered tuition fees by 10%. They also announced that schools will now have to give students the option of what other fees they pay to fund some campus clubs and organizations. Unifor has rolled out a new plan to convince General Motors to keep its Oshawa assembly plant open It's calling for a boycott on certain GM vehicles.
We're asking you to stand up to greedy motors. We want you to buy only GM vehicles that are made in Canada and the United States.
The union is asking people not to buy trucks and SUVs whose vehicle identification numbers start with the number 3, signifying that they are made in Mexico. Unifor says it will put that message out in both Canada and the U.S. on TV, billboards, and in newspapers. I ran that idea by GM Canada's president earlier today. Here's what he had to say.
We think that's reckless because it actually has collateral damage. When we're in an integrated NAFTA economy, what that means is that our parts makers that are located right here that employ thousands of people at companies like Linamar and Martin Ray, in fact some 64 of them, make parts that go into those vehicles that he wants people to not buy. But worse, even his own members who work in our St. Catharines plant and make transmissions that go into those vehicles, and our workers in our other CAMI plant that make stampings that go into those, they're also affected.
Do you understand the union complaint, though, that they feel that North America, we are losing jobs to Mexico? Well, in many industries, not just the auto industry.
Yeah, we're not sending any jobs to Mexico from Canada. We've actually invested $100 billion in Canada in the last 10 years, and we continue to do that. In fact, we're hiring 1,000 people right here in Toronto right now that is growing our software business and new businesses for the future. We still produce here. We build here where we produce. What we really need to do is to have everybody just sort of step down from the grandstand, and what we need to do is take care of our people in Oshawa. We have very generous packages and transition training that we're willing to pay for there, but we can't really do that until we can sit down with Unifor and move to that stage.
So as we talk about the grandstanding, we have heard and seen, I've spoken to Jerry myself about this, he seems convinced that they can save that plant. He is telling that to his workers, he's telling that to us journalists. He seems convinced that they can save that plant. What's your message when it comes to that?
Well, we've said since November that there's no point in trying to create false hope. We've been very direct, and production is going to end at the end of this year in Oshawa, and we've already set up provisions to be able to do retraining for some 5,000 jobs that have been brought to us by employers saying, we want to hire all those people. It's tough when you're transitioning in any business, whether it's in the media or whether it's in the automotive sector. Technology changes. And these are the hard parts of it. And we want to do it in a way that's really respectful of those workers, help them all get new jobs. We've talked almost daily with Unifor. Okay. We've talked with the government on a regular basis. I probably talk to them once a week. And what we say to them is, look, we're still wanting to grow here in Ontario. We see incredible opportunity as we change. But we have to manage through this in one iconic plant out of many plants that we have here in Ontario. It's tough. Let's do it as best we can. It's really difficult, I'm sure, for Jerry, and we want to work with him. But we really need to start by sitting down and looking at some of the packages that we have for those workers, which can include, for a fully pensioned worker, a $50,000 package, which includes a new car and full training to move into some 5,000 available jobs. But we're not able to move forward with our hourly workers, the ones that are organized by Unifor, because of this campaign. Now, in terms of the jobs, there is a wide range of those jobs. We've seen assembly manufacturing jobs in a job fair just last week at Mitsubishi near the airport, where they do assembly for airplane wings. They needed to hire 100 workers. But we're not able to get the packages done yet for those workers so that they know that they're ready to move over to that other thing. So they're missing opportunities. We'd like our workers in Oshawa to be at the front of the line for those opportunities as we go forward.
You grew up in this area. You knew what that plant meant to this region. What does it mean to somebody like you to see us lose it?
It's tough, and this is not just Oshawa that this is happening with. We are seeing 8 different plants, 4 in the United States, that are going through this same conversation all at the same time. It's tough because businesses have to change when the economy changes and when technology changes. So we're hiring 1,000 people to do software development, specialized artificial intelligence work in Markham, and we're going to be opening up a big new center in downtown Toronto in the next year or so. So we're still looking at growing here, but we can't just do the same thing we've always done for 100 years and expect that that is going to work. And for Oshawa, unfortunately, there was no viable business case that would allow us to do anything except lose lots of money if we moved forward. So what we've said is we'll take care of our people well, But we're totally committed to Canada, and we're going to go forward here.
Appreciate your time, David.
Thanks, Doug.
With the Ontario government looking at changes to make it easier to buy beer in corner stores and other retailers, the province's Craft Brewers Association is running a campaign trying to get beer lovers to lobby their MPPs in hopes of getting more craft beers on more store shelves. Mike Weiss spoke with 2 local breweries about the kind of changes they would like to see to how beer is sold in Ontario.
I think it's really important that people are voicing their opinions. We're living in a province where it's one of the most antiquated systems for beer distribution. Other places where I go, I can go into a corner store, grab a really high quality craft beer that's been stored properly, where I know that it hasn't been like sitting in a warehouse for a million years.
I'm glad that the door has been opened. We have been seeing a gradual opening over the last couple of years of the beer distribution laws in Ontario.
Yeah, it's better than it has been.
Definitely.
In decades. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's moving in the direction you want, but where else can that journey take us?
There's no reason why there shouldn't be a store that guarantees us, the proper storage of our beer, proper education.
Is it time for, the craft beer store? Maybe a cooperative, a retail outlet that's perhaps owned by 5 local breweries that, we rent 1,500 square feet in a popular spot of downtown and then just sell our 5 different breweries out of that retail outlet.
You can't do that.
Completely
no,
illegal.
You can't do that anywhere in Ontario. There's no such thing as just like a craft beer store.
Why can't you get more of your stuff into their distribution network?
Into the beer store?
Yeah.
Shacklands is quite a small brewery at the moment, so a play like the beer store isn't on our short-term radar right now. We need, you need to be able to just get out there and run it hard.
Is it still a viable thing? Still good? Still growth out there for it?
There is lots of room for growth in craft. In Ontario, over the last couple of years, I've heard people talk about, have we reached peak craft, and at below 8% of the entire Ontario market, we have a tremendous growth potential.
When this started, we did kind of know each other, but not very well. But this has really brought us close. I know there's a lot of friendships here now, which was formed and will go on outside of this.
Still ahead, how an open invite brought these 20 people together to create music and friendships in Leslieville. More on the mammals coming up. Plus, from Leslieville to Etobicoke to Scarborough and all over the GTA, we are tracking another dose of winter weather heading our way this weekend. Colette will have the details for you after the break. A group of neighbors are living their music dreams. Their band Mammals started last June as an open invite to anyone in the neighborhood, no experience needed. Now they are 20 strong, including an elementary school teacher, a healthcare worker, and more. Today they released their first album on iTunes and Spotify. Have a look and listen.
Ready, congratulations!
Everyone will come around, bring a guitar, and there's a lot of social positivity we found in doing that, and also being inspired by like choir, and all those kind of things. I have a music background, but apart from me, I'm the only person that's kind of involved in my job. A lot of people here actually have done no music before.
I never ever thought that I would be part of something like this. I have no musical talent whatsoever. I love to sing and I love to write, but yeah, I never would have thought that something like this would be something I was doing, ever. I work in administration, like, no. Like singing with a group of people is always pretty amazing. Singing in harmony with people you know, singing lyrics that I've written, it's hard not to get goosebumps.
It's a very close, tight-knit group of people. Like it's one of those communities where you can just, you know, go across the street and borrow something if you ever needed it. You can walk down the street and say hi to 5 different people on a random Saturday morning. It's a lovely group, a wonderful neighborhood.
It's been a very collaborative thing. And we've got to the end of it, which is great. It's amazing to see it on Spotify when you go up in the morning.
Oh, sorry, Colette. I was just there enjoying the music from the Mammals. Can you sing, Colette?
No,
Yeah,
I
me
cannot.
either.
I think we know that about each other,
Yes,
actually.
because we do sing in the newsroom, whether we can or not, often.
Yeah, and that's, hey, that's the joy of life, singing
Thank
whether
you.
you can or
Right?
not, right? Yeah, I loved how she said, I'm not musical, I'm in administration. It's awesome. Congratulations to them. And it looked like they were celebrating with some mimosas, which I can 100% guarantee in the forecast for my weekend, there'll be one of those in there somewhere. All right, let's show you what's going on with our watches and warnings that are in place. And I like to do this even though we're getting outside of the GTA, because so many of you may be traveling here on the weekend. And it's certainly important when we're seeing some of the whiteout conditions. We had some of those streamers making their way all the way into the city, of course, today. 15 to 25 centimeters possible in some of these areas with the snow squall warning. This is the watch area you see here in the lighter blue. And then the weather advisory, because they've been shifting around a lot, very hard to predict. And we get some of that blowing snow and reduced visibility. You can see through that area right there down there around the Niagara Peninsula. Current temperatures and some of the cold air that's in place, -10 for Toronto and Oshawa at -9. We factor in our winds and we're feeling in many cases just about at -20 and certainly at -20 there in Kitchener. Now, what is nice to see is the winds. They'll be backing off a little bit through the overnight hours. So we still have these problems as I was showing you the watches and warnings. But watch how these will diminish. They're going to start to ease up a little bit. The other nice thing to see here is that we're getting a trend with seeing clearing through the overnight hours. So for the city and for the shores, Lake Ontario even, we're talking about sunshine to start things off, at least for much of the day. Then clouds will build in later on Saturday. And I was a little worried about getting some snow accumulation Saturday night into Sunday. It's looking more like just some flurries are possible for us in there. -13 for Mississauga, -11 St. Catharines, Oshawa -13 tonight, Markham -15. Still looking at some of that snow possibly reaching you there before it tapers off. Tomorrow afternoon, -8 to -10 with those increasing clouds in the afternoon. There will be a wind chill even in the afternoon. It's going to feel like about -15. You can see that right here. And as we go into Sunday, clouds, some flurries, yes, slightly milder. I want to mention that Monday into Tuesday, looks like we may have a snow event there, 10 centimeters possible, maybe 15. That'll be something we're watching carefully after we get out of this weekend, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Plymouth. Everybody knows everything.
Well, I've got kind of a big day tomorrow.
I know all about your big day.
It's been shrouded in secrecy, but is it worth all the mystery? Eli joins us with his review of Serenity next.
I want you to drop him in the ocean for the sharks. They say she came all the way to see you.
The latest thriller starring Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. It's got big names, lots of mystery, tons of action, and it even has a pretty big twist. Eli's here to tell us all about it. So we know the main characters in this, the big stars, but we don't seem to know a lot about this film, Eli.
That's for a reason. It's deliberately shrouded in mystery. Lots of atmosphere here. Comes from a director named Stephen Knight. I don't know if you saw, there's a movie with Tom Hardy a couple years ago called Locke, L-O-C-K-E.
No.
Hardy just in a car yelling at people on his speakerphone.
Okay.
And that's the entire film, and I actually loved it, because there it was the situation, it was the simplicity. This movie doesn't really have simplicity going for it, but it does have Matthew McConaughey. Now, think of your classic McConaughey, like, you know, beach bum mode, the cutoff pants. It looks like he just washed him with a tide. That's what you have here, but here he's not looking to surf. He's actually a fisher after a big tuna. Let's take a look.
Around here, they like to say, everybody knows everything. What if the truth was, nobody knows anything?
I got a feeling today is the day.
Today is the day.
Is the day to wonder what kind of script he was reading when he signed on to do this. I don't know, but so there you go, Matthew McConaughey, and you see he kind of bumming around half drunk on this ocean island. Sometimes stops by to see Diane Lane. That's where he sells his body to get some money, to get some gas, because he's not the best businessman in the world. But then Anne Hathaway sachets in playing Karen. Now Karen is blonde and breathy. I think the hair dye does most of the acting in this performance. She's the femme fatale, and his character is, you got to get this, Baker Dill. That's his character's name. Baker Dill. So Dill, or Mr. Pickle, or whatever, he has a history with Blondie there, but she has that guy, husband, not very nice. She wants him taken care of, so here she is asking Dill to help.
I want you to take him out on your boat, let him get drunk, then drop him in the ocean for the sharks. In return, I will give you $10 million cash.
Now, here's where I'd like to do a public service for Toronto, because we are now in what I call the La Brea tar pits of cinema, right? You had the Oscar avalanche, right? All the great quality. And then there's spring is on the way with all the blockbusters. Then there's right now where the movies that you like, you know, it seemed like a good idea. Now we have this thing, and so, you know, we'll
just throw it out there.
We'll just throw it out there. It's like fishing. We'll see who we catch. That's where we are, folks.
So I'm guessing you're kind of going to say that Serenity's not hooking the audiences?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, I hope not. I mean, look, I kind of admire this movie because it's so audacious and so loopy. You have McConaughey kind of stumbling around this island, knowing that something is wrong. Jason Clarke, as I mentioned, shows up as the bad husband. Nothing nice about this guy. So you're thinking, why doesn't he take the $10 million? Like, what's the problem? I'll tell you the problem. Because he's obsessed with the tuna. He wants the fish. So the fish or the money. The fish or the money. And as you said, it's all leading up to, like, it doesn't make sense. So what's it about? A twist. That spooky guy shows up, and there's this big, giant twist that changes everything. But the twist doesn't make sense, and Stephen Knight isn't a good enough director to lay the groundwork for this movie filled with these soggy, waterlogged cliches of characters. So in the end, only for the most devoted McConaughey lovers, 2.5 stars out of 5.
Happy Friday, Eli.
You're welcome.
Anybody who is interested in history or interested in people or just really interested in great things to look at will be intrigued with the collection.
They've been privately collecting photographs for 40 years. Now a Toronto couple is making them public. More on the True to the Eyes exhibit and where you can see it next. The Tannenbaums have acquired one of North America's largest and most eclectic assortment of photographs over the last 4 decades. Now the Toronto couple is sharing part of that collection at the Ryerson Image Centre. Talia Ritchie visited the exhibit called True to the Eyes, which also takes the audience through the evolution of photography.
It's as if their home was a time capsule, and the uncovered relics are moments frozen throughout history. Howard and Carol Tannenbaum have been privately collecting photographs for decades.
And this was the piece that was our first in the collection.
And now they're on display for all to see.
I think that anybody who is interested in history or interested in people or just really interested in great things to look at will be intrigued with the collection.
I quite like how their stance is almost adult-like.
Yeah, you don't know whether they're 90 or whether they're 7 years old.
The exhibition True to the Eyes displays more than 200 photos, ranging in themes from family, poverty, civil rights, and nature, and ranging in time from the medium's first format in the 1800s.
And what's unusual about this daguerreotype is that it's being colored.
It's called The General's Wife.
Right up to contemporary work.
Raphael Goldchain and Ed Bertinsky, Chris Carreri, Vince Pietropalo, all of these people have contributed to the world of photography in Toronto.
While effortlessly reciting the story behind each photo and the way it was acquired,
the curiosity of the father looking at the son.
It's obvious that each piece holds an important place in the collection.
Anything else, Howie?
And in the hearts of the couple. Both admitting this is only a fraction of what they have.
It's sometimes hard to hang all of the photographs at our home, so we rotate them.
It is a survey of a sort through the eyes of this wonderful couple who have dedicated their lives to trying to represent the whole history of photography.
Some of these photos required years of chasing. All of them are a reflection of the way the Tannenbaums view the world.
There has to be some substance within the, in the photograph, something that teaches you, whether it's about the culture or about the person who is being photographed or about the way in which the photographer portrays that particular person.
Talia Ritchie, CBC News, Toronto.
Beautiful photographs there. Okay, do you want to deal with the snow event or save that for Monday or just deal with the weekend cold that's coming?
Let's start with our weekend and then we'll work our way to it if there's time. But we are looking at, it looks like pretty quiet conditions once we see some of these squalls coming down through the overnight hours. Minus 13, and we're looking at sunshine at least to start the day off tomorrow. So nice to see. Minus 9, now it's going to feel like minus 15. So we do have very cold air in place, clouds move in, and then we get more cloud cover and some flurries Saturday night into Sunday. The storm you mentioned, Monday night into Tuesday morning, it looks like we're going to see this system coming in. Right now, it's in the west. It's back developing towards the prairies, but coming in and giving us some measurable snow.
You were saying to 15, maybe?
Maybe, yeah. Okay. That's how it's looking at this point, yeah, so.
But tomorrow is going to be one of those you're going to look outside, and it's going to be nice and sunny.
Yeah.
And you're going to think it's nice, and you're going to step outside and see just how cold it is.
Exactly. You have to be dressed for it still, even though the sun will be shining.
Thanks, Colette.
Yeah.
That's it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here on Monday.